The BABOLAT Pure Strike 100 versus
the Wilson Blade 100.
We have just been putting them through their paces, so stick around to find out which one we prefer and why. Welcome back to our versus range. Today we have the BABOLAT Pure Strike 100. This is the more traditional 100, not the new version, which is the 1620 to 5 gram. This is the 100, 300 gram, 1619 Pure Strike 100, and it's up against
the Wilson Blade 100, which, again, based on its spec, is exactly the same. We have 100 square inch, 300 gram, 1619. They even have the same balance point.
So they should play the same, but I tell you, we've just used them. They do not.
Certainly not. We strung them both with restring sync, the 1.25 gauge at £50.
Yep, so it's a control string in control rackets, although both control rackets have been stretched, both traditionally 98s.
Yes.
And they've both been turned into 100s. So it's a really fair fight between these two.
So let's see which racket can handle those extra 2 square inches best.
So you have just seen us putting these rackets through their paces, and it was a very enjoyable experience, I must say, overall. I enjoyed both.
Oh, so you're welcome.
No, not you.
Oh, okay, right.
Obviously don't enjoy spending time with my brother.
No, ditto. So the big thing these rackets are meant to do. So Wilson and BABOLAT both designed the Strike and the Blade to be control rackets. Easy to use, maneuverable, comfortable. We're going to use the word precision. We're not sure.
To the fact that the Pure Strike obviously was previously known as the Pure Control.
Yeah.
So it's certainly in its storied history.
Yes, but as Josh said earlier, they have made these two and the 100 ranges slightly bigger. So the head size has gone from 98 square inch, which is the traditional size, up to 100.
And that is, I think, because they're trying to widen the control racket appeal to a wider audience.
Yes.
By opening the string bed up, making it easier to access power and spin, bigger sweet spot, having to be less precise to be able to use it, therefore a more saleable commodity.
Yes, and therefore there is an issue. With all tennis racket design, there is a trade-off between power and control. All the brands, every racket will tell you that you get power and control, but it's impossible. You can't have both.
This is certainly control frames with
added power.
And yes, a pinch
of power. They've added a pinch of power to the control pie. Yeah?
Sure.
So essentially, which has done it best?
Yeah.
So let's go straight into power then.
Yes.
Which has done it best?
I don't know.
No, so it's really hard. It's really hard to figure out.
This is one of the hardest verses I think I've ever done.
Yeah.
I literally had the racket on the floor, was doing a few shots with one, changing and being like, they're different, but I just don't quite know why they're different.
I think, and I feel that this is slightly more flexible, but flexible in so much as it feels like the weight is at the tip of the racket is lagging behind. So you get more of like a racket lag just naturally.
So does that give you some power then?
Yeah, so then I feel like it just seems to whip through and just sort of the racket sort of just flies through the ball a little bit more on its own. So
yeah, and I think I agree, because I think when I was fresh at the start, and the ball was I was kind of on like freer, and was kind of throwing the racket around and being really aggressive with a longer, a faster swing. I think the speed of the swing is the important bit. Then the Pure Strike was glorious, but as I got tired and needed something a bit to help me a bit more, then I started to move back towards the Blade.
The best thing I can think of, so Joe, who's not here right now, is working hard editing some of the other videos. I'm going to give him a little challenge. There is flexible sledgehammers. So there's like sledgehammers on, like, it almost looks like a rope. And I don't know how they work, but that's what that feels like. So I want him to cut in. So Joe, cut in now. So sledgehammers on a rope. And everyone will now see that's what that feels like to me.
So on power, it's kind of a convoluted answer. But I think the Pure Strike just gets it.
Yes, just.
Spin.
Blade.
Yeah, and this has been a common theme. We did the Blade 100 review on its own, so if you're interested in more depth opinions on the Blade, you can find that. We also have done the Blade 100 versus the Speed MP, and in all of them, in all these playtests, the topspin potential of the Blade 100 just continues to surprise.
Yes. It's not meant to be spinny. And I think that's what's surprising about it. You know, it's not, the blade is sold as sharp.
You did the 1820 1619
yes.
of the blade. Was the 1619 spinny?
No, not to the same extent that this is. It's spinnier than the 1820, but it's nowhere near this. So this almost feels like an aero to me.
So by opening up that extra 2 square inches, maintaining the same string pattern, maybe the power hasn't gone up that much, but the spin's gone up a lot. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be uncomfortable saying this is a spin racket. Whoa.
Like if someone said, you know, use an extreme or a V-core or an aero, it's like, it's not that far off, which is crazy to think.
So I quite like to think of rackets now as their base playable factor with then a hint of something else.
Yes.
So maybe I would say this is control with some power.
Yep.
And maybe the blade is control with some spin.
So speaking of control, are we therefore saying that they're basically the same? Or is this...
The blade is more maneuverable, and I think it's I think you get more dwell time. I think it flexes more.
But the other way.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think you do get more feel and control out of it.
Yeah, so again...
At higher speeds, I think the strike probably then gives you more control.
I feel like you could control a difficult incoming ball better with that. Because it's got a bit more stability, it's a bit more powerful, it's a bit more solid. I feel like you can control the outcome of your ball a bit better with this.
Partly from the spin.
Well, mainly become the spin. But I wouldn't say either has the edge in terms of control. I think it's a wash. But
serving?
Very, very similar again. I think this I found this a bit easier.
I would lean slightly blade on serve. Volley, I would stay strike.
Yep.
But all-round manoeuvrability, touch and feel, drop shots, etc., then I would then go back to the blade.
Yeah, so we're saying power.
Yeah.
Spin. Sorry, 1-all.
Control.
Kind of a draw.
Yeah.
And then precision and feel similar? Or does this feel nicer?
Yeah, I think just that feeling on contact. Although the strike is much improved in that area.
Yes.
The what is it called? The NR2 tech.
Yes.
The natural flax fibers in the handle.
This stuff does make a difference, doesn't it? Yeah.
It really feels very different to the previous generation. Pure strike.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of this was what making this so difficult for us. Is that kind of similarly when we tested both of these individually against the speed, they're so similar, and it really is just a case of, like you said, they're control rackets with a little bit of.
Yeah.
So when we say this has got more power, that's got more power, just. And when we say that the blade's got more spin, just. Like none of these are good, bad, or anything.
Well, interesting, on spin, I'd maybe disagree and say that spin is the biggest differing factor.
Yeah. Okay,
Across all of them, they're all very close, whether one's slightly better or not. Whereas on spin, I think that the blade does produce more.
Yeah.
So the sorts of players that would enjoy these 100s, obviously we said at the start that the brands have created these to widen the appeal of these control rackets that are generally more for more advanced players. So is it producing, is it allowing more intermediate or advanced club players into the control range?
Yeah, they are easy to use, so that's who it's for. So anyone who wants a racket that's easy to use. If you've been using a Prestige or a Pro Staff or the old V-Core Pro now called the Percept, then these are certainly going to be easier to use.
But would you not just go to the 98s if you were from those really precision?
But I guess that's kind of the ladder that you go through. That's the stages. These are certainly towards things like the Pure Drive and the E-Zone.
Yeah, so maybe if you're a Pure Drive 100 user or an Aero user, and you're thinking, maybe I do overhit a bit.
Yes.
Maybe I don't quite get the control and feel that I need, but I don't want to lose
power,
access to complete power. Then these are not a bad option to go to.
And I wouldn't say either or in that regard, right? These are very, very similar. So they're very close to each other, but very different to other things.
How would you say if you had someone who had a longer, quicker, spinnier swing, I would probably direct them more towards the Pure Strike. If you're a bit more average.
No one likes being average.
Well, average in terms of average length, average speed, and or the ability, or who are more adaptable and do a bit more of everything. Then probably the blade.
Yeah.
If you're quite set and you play very specific shots and you try and use that all the time.
Yes.
you shouldn't do that, by the way. But if you do, then the strike would be good.
Yeah.
If you are a bit more adaptable and a bit more of an all-court player looking for access into all sorts of different things, then the blade would probably be the one I would suggest.
Yeah, and I guess we kind of said it whilst we were playing, didn't we, before the cameras were rolling, that it feels like it's getting harder to do. Like, these rackets are good, like they're getting more and more homogenous. That's the whole point of the 100, is to sort of make them a bit more like everything else. So they're kind of for everyone.
Yeah,
like,
they lose. Oh yeah, and they obviously lose a little bit of their strikeness or bladeness by making them 100s, because they are traditionally in that 98 head.
Yes, it feels more like a tennis racket.
So if you, Ben, had to choose
Josh.
either of these rackets and you could only use it for the rest of time, which one are you picking?
Just the blade.
And why?
Just a point of note, I would be perfectly happy with this, but I would choose that, the blade. So we keep saying this and that, we get in trouble for this, don't we? The strike and the blade. I would go with the blade because it is slightly easier, slightly more comfortable. I like the spin. I feel like it gives me more in more situations and would suit more situations as well.
Yeah, so I think the strike is more fun, and I think, but I think I get frustrated with it.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
If I could only use one of them for the rest of the time, I think on great days, when everything's working for you, timing's good, sunny, beautiful,
terrible opponent,
strike, it's just going to be like, feel amazing, dominate them off the court. But when you're on the back foot, struggling, depths of winter, heavy balls, working hard, I feel like you get really annoyed and probably smash it up.
Yeah.
Whereas the blade, I don't think you could ever smash it up, because you would never, it's almost like you would feel it's too good to. It offers too much of everything to blame it.
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting point. Once again, thank you very, very much for watching, and well done for making it all the way to the end. Because you've made it all the way to the end, we will listen to your comments. The number of people who comment after the first 30 seconds.
Because you can tag the time of the comment. So if you tag your comment now, proving you got to the end, not only will we reply, we might even make you a personalised video.
We might.
See you on the next video.
Thank you.